sorry.
They raided the wrong house because they did not do their job.
You're trying to minimize things that go wrong.
This should never happen. We should not be sitting here right now. What did my son do to them?
My mother deserves better than a snickering sheriff.
I recently shared a clip where Debbie Collier's son Jeffrey Bearden is expressing his feelings towards Sheriff Joey Terrell and how he was treated when he called him to discuss his mother's case. He said that the sheriff laughed at him and that he continued to laugh even when he asked him to stop. The main reason for Jeffrey's call was that he was concerned about the leaked information about the case that had been reported in the news, which supposedly had come from someone within law enforcement. So he was worried about that, and of course, since the leaks were saying that his mom's death was no longer considered a murder investigation, he was worried because he feels that there was someone else involved and that his mom didn't do this to herself. That's also what we were told initially by the officials, that this was a deliberate and personal murder. So Jeffrey was very upset by how the sheriff treated him on the phone. Now Jeffrey has spoken publicly again.
He wants answers. He wants justice for his mom, and as I learned tonight, he has some questions of his own.
It doesn't make sense to me why my mom was in Clayton, Georgia, especially that there was a Dollar General that she frequently visited that was less than a mile from her home.
And what about the tarp and reusable tote bag she bought? Items which were found next to her partially nude and burned body.
I mean, we have tarps at the house. I found about 20 to 30 reusable bags at my mom's house.
Something else caught Bearden's eye.
I've never seen my mom wear shorts in the last 5 years of her life.
So you're questioning if that was even your mom in that video?
Absolutely. Yeah, I am. I do not think my sister has the capacity to hurt my mom. She was my mom's lifeline, but I don't trust the people that my sister hangs out with, and that's my concern.
As far as the bizarre Venmo payment of $2,385 sent from Debbie's phone to her daughter's on the day before her body was found,
I've never seen my mom Venmo that large of an amount of money.
There's one thing Bearden made very clear.
I am not going to stop until you are in jail or you're on death row.
Now, Jeffrey Bearden has also questioned how the Habersham County Sheriff's Office has handled this investigation. Bearden tells me last week he called the sheriff, and when he questioned the sheriff about the investigation, how they've handled it, he, quote, snickered at him on the phone when he pushed for answers. Bearden went so far to ask for the sheriff's resignation on how this whole thing has been handled.
As for the part where Jeffrey mentions how the sheriff laughed at him and his situation, apparently it's not the first time Sheriff Joey Terrell is being accused of this type of thing. In 2015, the sheriff and a SWAT team raided a home in the middle of the night, and they acted in a way that almost killed an 18-month-old baby. The baby, his parents, and the 3 siblings had moved to the home 2 months prior after they had lost their own home to a fire. So they moved to a relative in Georgia. The son of this family that they were staying with had been engaging in drug-related activity, and he was the target of this operation, but he wasn't even there at the time because he had moved to another location. So what they do when they enter this home in the middle of the night when everyone's sleeping is that they blindly throw in a stun grenade that lands inside of the baby's crib.
Toddler burned by a flash grenade
landed in his playpen in a SWAT raid that critically hurt a little boy.
If they would have done their job at all, any kind of surveillance, they would have known that their suspect did not live there, and that there were plenty of children in that house.
My girls were freaking out, and then I heard my son start screaming and crying. And when I went to go pick him up, another officer grabbed him first. And I kept asking that officer, give me my son, he's scared, he's crying, just let me have him, give him to me. And when I went to grab him, the officer told me...
He stopped you?
Yes, he told me to shut up and go sit down.
So you couldn't even see what happened? So you're seeing smoke?
and you saw this bang, and it literally landed in his crib.
During that time, we didn't know yet. During that time, because they tried to hide him from us. And when they got me up, they have two officers standing blocking the view of the crib.
We wanted an explanation. We wanted to know why there was blood on the concrete. So where did that blood come from? Look at the playpen. What happened to our son? Why is there so much blood on the concrete?
I kept asking, where is he? What happened? Your son just lost a tooth. He's okay. They just took him for observation.
Your son just lost a tooth?
Tell me about the moment that you realized where the blood came from. When did you first see your son?
When we got to Grady.
Right.
To the hospital?
Yes.
And what did you see?
I saw my baby boy laying there. His face is blew open. And his nose wasn't even attached to his face. It was horrifying. He has permanently lost his left nipple when the explosion happened. My husband has got to see the hole in his chest. I have not been able to.
You could see ribs.
Yep.
It was a hole in his chest.
Georgia has a dirty history when it comes to over-policing and not doing their due diligence. Whether it is Boom Font Savant having his face literally blown open and his chest blown open on a botched drug raid, all in the name of the war on drugs. Whether it is Kendrick Johnson down in Valdosta with a botched investigation resulting in a murder mystery.
Have you gotten any kind of apology face-to-face from any of these SWAT? No.
Nothing. Nothing for our son, no card, no balloon, not a phone call, not anything.
I just see them making lies of us on the TV.
And laughing about it.
I tried to figure out where these accusations about the sheriff laughing at the situation came from, and from what I gather, I believe they must originate from an interview that was made with him after the incident.
2 days later, the man in charge of the raid, Habersham County Sheriff Joey Terrell, went public. So we've come here to the Habersham County Sheriff's Office to get some answers from the sheriff himself.
Sheriff, good morning.
He's a big man with little to say.
I just want to ask you a couple of questions about the Von Sappen family.
I can't answer any under advice of counsel.
Clearly there was a tragic mistake.
I'm not going to get off on tactics with you. I'm not going to get off in the weeds on it. I'm not going to talk about what happened.
A lot of weeds here, huh?
There's tons of weeds.
Have the tactics changed?
We've examined everything we do. We've trained with other teams. And there's not going to be a real good answer to that one, is there?
The officers and the team, the SRT guys, made their way through the front door of the house. Mm-hmm. Through the house, they get to this bedroom door. And that bedroom door is also locked?
I believe, yes, so you got me off guard there. Well, that one, sorry. Special agent, is that what he's called? The assistant special agent in charge of our area, Brad Parks. 2 o'clock in the morning, hopefully he's in the bed asleep. It's easy to go in and get him and be done. Instead of, if you hit him at 7 or 8 o'clock in the afternoon when they're doing business and they have more time to run, more things can go wrong. You're trying to minimize anything that could go wrong. And in this case, the greatest thing went wrong in the world that nobody ever wanted to happen.
They kept him in a medically induced coma for over 5 weeks.
It's just not fair. This should never have happened. We should not be sitting here right now. What did my son do to them?
You're trying to minimize anything that could go wrong.
Baby Bou Bou survived and got to come home after 5 weeks in the hospital, but has had to suffer a ton of reconstructive surgeries and will have to continue to do so, I believe, yearly until he's fully grown. The family were left with hospital bills of $1 million, and they did file a lawsuit against the county. Now, the answer to that lawsuit is what led to the assumptions that these officers, including Sheriff Terrell, were actually blaming the baby and his caretakers for what had happened. These are statements from the document where the officers answer to and defend themselves against a complaint filed by Bou Bou's family. And these are also the statements where I believe the accusations of them blaming the baby comes from. If you're not aware, the plaintiffs refer to Bou Bou and his parents. Plaintiffs' damages, if any, resulted solely from the voluntary and intentional conduct of plaintiffs or others and not from any conduct of these defendants or those over whom these defendants had any control. To the extent as may be shown by the evidence through discovery, these defendants show that plaintiffs' damages, if any, were directly and proximately caused by the contributory and comparative negligence of plaintiffs and their failure to exercise ordinary care. No act or omission of these defendants either proximately caused or contributed to any damages allegedly suffered by plaintiffs. Therefore, plaintiffs have no right of recovery against these defendants. To the extent, as may be shown by the evidence through discovery, plaintiffs' injuries and damages, if any, were caused by the deliberate criminal conduct of plaintiffs. And such criminal conduct supersedes any and all negligence or liability, if any, on the part of these defendants. After a long and exhausting battle, the family eventually won the lawsuit and they got their hospital bills paid for, but from what I understand they never got an apology and of course no criminal charges were ever made towards the officers involved.
The citizens of Habersham County found no grounds to charge any of the officers involved with a crime.
If you are responsible for a flashbang and you deploy that flashbang into a pack-and-play and nearly kill an 18-month-old toddler, how is that not criminally negligent?
If we had any evidence that they knew the pack-and-play was there, you're in the criminal sector there.
Good information such as a minivan with 4 car seats right in front of the front door?
That's a good point.
Do you think anybody from that SWAT team did anything wrong?
There were mistakes made. The intelligence on the front end is how the tragedy could have been avoided.
That intelligence was gathered by a drug unit that was disbanded just one day after we rolled into town and confronted Sheriff Terrell. And guess who oversees that unit's budget? Sheriff Terrell and D.A. Rickman, among others.
I mean, you're involved intimately in the workings of this unit. It seems like a conflict of interest.
It's not a legal conflict of interest.
4 years ago, undercover officers in the same drug unit shot and killed unarmed pastor Jonathan Ayers at this gas station. Earlier this year, his pregnant widow was awarded $2.3 million in a wrongful death suit.
Sure is easy for law enforcement to hurt people and get away with it in that area, isn't it?
Is that a question or?
Yeah, that's a question. Are there any repercussions for law enforcement officials and officers who are involved in seriously injuring someone or killing them in your jurisdiction?
Yes.
Criminal repercussions.
Nobody went to jail.
Why can't they just say, I'm sorry, we messed up, we're gonna make things right?
So the reason I thought it was relevant to bring up baby Bou Bou's case in regards to Jeffrey Bearden and his mom, Debbie Collier, is that the sheriff was accused of the same thing back then as he is now by Jeffrey. Could it be that the sheriff is just the type of person that laughs when he gets nervous and in inappropriate situations? Absolutely. But what bothers me is why he refuses to apologize to these people. I mean, if it could help them feel just the tiniest bit better in the midst of this tremendous tragedy in their life, why not? I feel like that's an issue. Now, is it an issue serious enough that people should be calling for the sheriff to resign? I don't know. According to Jeffrey, yes. Something has definitely made him lose faith in this sheriff and made him feel like he needs to fight for his mom to get justice. My question is, could something dirty be going on, or should we just stay calm and trust that everything's been done the way that it should?